Warning, the following audio transmission is based on theory and is intended for entertainment purposes only. It's Doomsday and its affiliates will not be held liable for anything your dumbass does. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to It's Doomsday Podcast Live. Today is November 28th, 2022. Time is 18:03. And joining me is the lovely and talented Jake Dials. How are you doing, buddy?
Yo, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's up? And just, guys, let me know in the chats if you can hear Jake okay or not. Because we were trying something a little bit different today. And you guys should be getting both of us on YouTube as well. With that being said, yep, they can hear you. Great. So this is going off without a hitch. This is working. I'm so excited. Hopefully the YouTube stream is going well too. I don't want to go watch it and break the internet, but I don't know if it could handle all that. I'm pretty sure that it could, but anyway. So I hope everybody's doing well that's coming in. I see Kate, I see Shelby, I see Eric, I see Tiff. Who else we got in here? I see Al. What's up, Al? And of course, Jake is joining us almost kind of in the live studio. Jake is over there on the YouTube with me, and this is actually really cool. Probably recommend that you have a D-Live and Twitch stream as a backup. Thank you, Eric. I might look into that. I'm trying to learn this stuff, guys, and I got to tell you, this is not my forte. Trying to learn this stuff is very difficult for me, so I'm just kind of trying to take it one day at a time.
Looks like they're losing the video. They're losing my camera on your end on YouTube.
Jake sounds good. Cannot see Jake on YouTube. What is going on with that?
It's back now. Now it's gone.
Is it like there's got to be a setting in OBS that's wrong of why it's not doing it? Or maybe it's a Chrome setting. Like apparently if I click on Chrome, you pop back up in OBS. So
something's trying to fight priority over it.
Probably what it is. Anyway. So, guys, we're going to get into the show. And guys, you know that these Monday night shows, they're structured a bit different now. We're going to be doing shorter episodes, just an hour and a half with a topic and trying to keep everything squared away and in line. And eventually we'll get the YouTube thing figured out. Eventually we'll get everything on par to where these are better because I want to be putting these out every week. These 2 episodes a day. So let me go ahead here or not 2 episodes a day, I'm sorry. These 2 extra episodes a week that we're going to break down.
I'm going to go ahead and apologize for my kids now. I know they're going to be loud.
Oh, okay, it's all right. Just mute when you need to be muted because I don't think I can mute you on my end.
Yeah, I can mute. I'll try to mute in and out.
Okay, that works. All right, so we're going to do this, guys. The episode I wanted to cover tonight was basically the American youth and the mental health problems we're facing, and we periodically talk about this on a lot of the shows we do. This seems to be a hot button topic. It comes up in conversation a lot. And because I'm what I'm seeing go on with this, I really wanted to kind of hit this hard and hammer this out. And some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, guys, are going to be very, very scary. I did want to pull some current events into this before we got going. And I know everybody's up in arms about the railroad strike again, guys. I keep seeing this pop up left and right. Everybody's talking about this. And I really don't know if this is something just to make us feel concerned or if it's something we should actually be concerned about. Jake, what are your thoughts on that?
With the railroad strike specifically?
Yes.
It seems to me, man, from what I can tell, it seems to me that it seems to be one quote unquote crisis after another, and we keep reverting back and jumping back and forth to things. But it seems like nowadays we just we have a problem, go into the next problem, go into the next problem, go to the next problem. It seems like a very much a stoking of the fire of many problems happening at the same time now, instead of just one giant thing, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I almost feel like they're doing it to kind of mess with the ratings. Like as soon as we get calmed down about something, they bring something up to make us start freaking out about, to get us out to the stores, maybe panic buying, maybe to spend gas, just to get us motivated, throw something out there to scare us. If the railroad does strike, I think it is something we definitely need to take serious.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. But it seems the best way I can describe it feels like we're going through like a transition of sorts with things. Look at what's happening with Twitter. That's the next thing that is going to be pushed into this mix as well, because Apple's considering taking Twitter off of the App Store, just specifically because of who owns it. And it looks like he's finding some very interesting uncoverings of things.
Well, yeah, we talk about the censorship a lot within social media, guys, and I'm just going to reiterate this for anybody that may be out there listening when this show gets uploaded, guys. I have turned my back on the TikTok, and I am moving over to Clapper, and that's pretty much what it is. I'll be posting show-related things there, but as far as just doing random and daily content stuff like that, it's not going to be over there anymore. I'm done. If you guys don't have Clapper yet, get Clapper. It's American-owned and operated. They run it out of Texas. It's not as user-friendly, but you can actually talk to these people. I got to go into the Clapper radio today and actually talk to a couple of the girls that work at the app, and I got to actually physically have a conversation with them and make some suggestions. That's not something you're going to be able to do with these larger platforms, and this is an up and coming thing. It's going to grow. People love it, and it needs to be tweaked a little bit. They know that, and they're working on it. But it's really cool to be able to have that interaction with the people that have the app. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna get into this, guys. So, Youth of the Nation, I have a few different information around here from different sources from different years, and we're gonna kind of pull all this together and kind of make it worth it. The first thing I wanted to bring up is about lost time to disability globally due to medical issues by percentage. All right. Now, this is an older article. This is coming from the WHO, World Health Organization, from 2012. So go back in your time machine 10 years and think about how the world was working then, because to me it seems a lot more screwed up now than what it did. And this is kind of a big thing here. So disability time loss. The biggest factor for this in 2012 was mental and behavioral disorders. So mental and behavioral. I know that's like a two-headed coin when we talk about that, because they both fall into the mental realm. But there is, I guess, a little bit of a difference between being, having mental issues and having behavioral issues, but they're still, in my opinion, psychological. Musculoskeletal diseases fell in at 14, so that was next on the list. But to go on to the third one on the list, coming in at 13, was neurological and sense organ conditions. And you guys know what neurological means. That's pretty easy to figure out. So this is an old one. Jake, are you surprised by these numbers at all?
No, I'm not. I know that's like the short answer, but no.
Okay.
Nothing surprises me anymore, dude.
So this was back 10 years ago, 2012. And I mean, it was really hard to find a recent statistic on that. But I was able to find this because when I got to thinking about the idea of the mental health side in our youth, I was really thinking, well, how much money are we really putting out? Because this all falls back into the healthcare realm, right? So this is from Statista, and this is an updated one. This is from November 11th, 2022. And the only reason I pulled this article at all was just to give you guys kind of an idea of where we sat globally as far as how in debt Americans are. So per capita in the United States, well, we have the highest. Let me start with this. We have the highest medical debt out of any other country in the world, which is interesting when you consider the population of the U.S. and how far people are spread out. And you take a place like China, or Japan, where everybody's condensed and they're falling lower on the list. Hey preppers, do you want 10% off survival food? Go to www.readywise.com and use code DOOM10 at checkout for 10% off all your survival food needs. Again, that's code DOOM10 at checkout at readywise.com, DOOM10 for 10% off at readywise.com. I'll be the first to say that America is not the healthiest country out there, and I think we all kind of know that.
What?
We definitely got a lot of things going on here in this country that makes us pretty bad, but I'm trying to find, so US per dollars per capita, the US comes in at 11,859, and then second comes in Switzerland at 7,000 per capita. So we are leading in medical debt here. And I know you got to kind of take some of this with a grain of salt, though, because we provide a lot of healthcare in this country. Some other countries on this list just don't have as good a healthcare, which is why they're not having the debt that we have, right? So it is something you could kind of take with a grain of salt, even though we know we have severe health problems in the U.S. And the lowest one that comes in on the list is India, comes in the lowest, and third to last is China. Now, you would think China, being this overly populated country, things like this could potentially be way, way higher on the list, but they're really, really low. But again, we are up there because of the issues that we face in this country. Jake, thoughts, comments on any of that?
America's extremely unhealthy anyway, dude. I know it's going to come down to a lot of factors, a lot of economic factors, and China as a whole is unhealthy too. But a lot of that reasoning isn't necessarily for the same reason that America is, because they don't overindulge. So it has to be something else. And what you have to consider is environmental things. So, everybody says, everything is made in China, but that's because they can skip over the same regulations that we have to adhere to. They can just pass right over those. And the effect for that is that you can get things cheaper there. You can get them more quickly there. But the problem is that the people suffer for that because there aren't any health regulations. So you have people dying of these horrible illnesses and dying early. So their reason for being probably equally unhealthy is a completely different reason, I would assume.
Most definitely. I mean, and I think that when we've talked about this many times, is the idea that other countries eat cleaner. They're more active. They're not just eating McDonald's and sitting in front of computers all day. Obesity's really, really bad here. But I definitely want to keep this geared more toward the mental health thing. So you guys out there know, anybody that's gotten close to me, if you have a child that has mental issues or there's potentially a problem, I've always gone out of my way to try to help people through these things, because there's no how-to guide online. And I've tried to help a lot of families. I've tried to help a lot of people as far as issues that they're going through with their children, because whenever I had all my issues with my son, nobody was there to help me. There was nobody. There's no good online forums, really. There's a couple here and there, but there's nothing in depth. And I found out when you start working with the states, they let your children start slipping through the cracks, and they just become a cog in the machine where they just want to suck funding out of these kids, and there's never a cure, and they just want to keep this, going down this, through this revolving door effect of where they're just staying in the system and they can never escape. And a lot of this is mental health. And I got an article I'm going to read in the second half of the show here about how the school system is failing this, because I believe that's where it all starts. But just so you guys know, I had a meeting today about my son, because we're working desperately on getting him moved placement, getting him from where he is, and getting him moved to a new facility. And a lot of people have came to me and said, Jester, if it's that bad where he is, pull him out of there, bring him home, or this, that, the other. And I'm going to explain something to you guys. I've had people cast judgment over this before, and if I will fight somebody over this, I will go toe to toe with you. I know I am not a trained mental health professional. I know that. I've accepted that. I've accepted my son is outside of my level of care, and I know it is a liability to bring him home, and I know there's nothing I can do to change that. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a therapist. I am not none of this. He is out of our level of care, and we know that. We know that bringing him home could be detrimental to him, our other children. It could bring our house to the ground. We know it's not an option. So anybody that wants to come at me and call me shitty or say that I'm not doing enough, be my guest. Yes, thank you, Vet Tech. You have to know your limitations, and I do know my limitations. So when we talk about adolescent mental health, there's a lot of things within this. So I've got a lot of stuff here from the WHO, and I hate utilizing the World Health Organization for this, but when it comes to putting statistics together, they seem to be about the best. And this was the most recent article I could find, and this is from November 17th, 2021. And this is how they're putting this on this list. Okay, hold on, guys. I want to make sure my phone is completely off because now I'm getting messages. Airplane mode on, suckers. All right. So globally, 1 in 7 10 to 19-year-olds experience a mental disorder, accounting for 13% of the global burden of disease in this age group. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, a wide percentage of that is sitting in the U.S. I mean, it's a pretty big number if you think about it just as it is, 13%, and, being 10 to 19 years old. So specifically around the teenage era, they're seeing these mental health disorders. Depression, anxiety, even behavioral disorders are among the leading causes of illness and disability among adolescents. And this is true. And we've seen this. Suicide is the 4th leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. Again, we've talked about this on the show. A few weeks ago, we talked about suicide and, kind of trying to shed more light on this with the suicide awareness episode. And, and I know he falls out of the age range, but, childhood hero Jason David Frank just committed suicide last week. So, I mean, we're actively seeing this. The consequences of failing to address adolescent mental health concerns extend to adulthood, impairing both physical and mental health and limiting opportunity to lead fulfilling lives as adults, which is very true. Jake, thoughts?
It's never good thoughts. It's never good thoughts.
No.
And to think about how that's detrimental is the word that I want to use. And I think that's a good word to use to describe it. But how it makes me feel about it is also detrimental, because you have to really think about the effects down the road that that's going to have. And the impact that that's going to make when these young people become young adults and become matured adults, you know that's going to reverberate through our culture, and you have to wonder how that's going to change culture as a whole here and around the rest of the world too. And we can kind of see that happening kind of as we go, and we see the small tidbits of it now and how it affects society. And it's not one of those, like, people have to put a halt on their lives to take care of their loved ones and all of that. It's we have people who don't get the help that they need, and because of that, they don't have the tools in their belt to succeed, and they're going out into society, and it's not a good thing, and it can't be good for the whole of society.
No, and since you bring that up, I mean, I honestly think that's part of the plan to help deteriorate the nation. If we ignore these things, if we don't address them properly in our American youth, then it's going to end up turning into something huge into adulthood, and you're going to have people that can't function at work, that just can't be part of can't have an active relationship, can't have an active marriage. They're not going to be able to just properly function. I totally get what you're saying, but I 100% think it's by design. You know,
I have to wonder that too, man. I think about these things all the time, and you know, anybody can say anything that they want to say, and the only way that we're going to going to get problems solved is that we talk about them, no matter how difficult they might be to talk about. And it seems like in society we have this controversy mindset in our minds that if we disagree on a point, or if we disagree on something as a whole, then we're terrible people. And you don't agree with me, you're a horrible person. I don't agree with you, you're the horrible person. Back and forth sort of mentality. This will never get anything achieved that we need to achieve. It's never going to work if we can't have these discussions, however difficult they may be, and conduct ourselves like adults while doing so. And that's what scares me too, along with this, paired with this, because we have people who are in one way or another, or in multiple ways, in that mindset, infantile still, because of mental health or broken home or whatever situation. And we're expecting them to conduct themselves like adults without any training. And it's like going to a job and getting hired to do a job that takes a skill set or a certification or whatever qualification, without ever having even gone to the first day of class for your certification, and just expecting to do your job. How do we think that's going to work out?
right? I couldn't agree more with you. Now we're going to get into. So what you brought up a little, if we didn't properly handle it, we're going to get into the introduction of this, and this is going to shed some light. And Jake, it goes right down the road of what you were saying. 1 in 6 people are aged 10 to 19 years old. Adolescence is a unique and formative time. Physical, emotional, and social changes, including exposure to poverty, abuse, or violence, can make adolescents vulnerable to mental health problems. Protecting adolescents from adversity, promoting social emotional learning and psychological well-being, and ensuring access to mental health care are critical for their health and well-being during adolescence and going into adulthood. Um, and I gotta say this though, mind you, I agree with this, but it comes from the WHO, and I know they don't have anybody's best interest at heart. So it's almost like like to me, I'm reading this. If you can't do this, we're going to step in and do it for you, is almost how I interpret this. But um, globally, it's estimated that 1 in 7, 14%, 10 to 19-year-olds experience mental health conditions, yet these remain largely unrecognized and untreated. Adolescents with mental health conditions are particularly vulnerable to social exclusion, discrimination, stigma, affecting readiness to seek help, basically education difficulties, risk-taking behaviors, physical ill health, and human rights violations. Now, one thing that it didn't put in here that I think that needed to go in here was it didn't bring anything up about mental health leading to drug use, because it 100% does. A lot of people who are suffering from depression will turn to self-medication. That includes alcohol, harder drugs. That's how that works. That's what happens. So again, if these things are going unaddressed, it does lead into that as well. But we're gonna get into a few different types of these disorders, and there's a bunch here we're gonna get into. Jake, before I start on my reading spree here, you got anything comments on that?
In my small town, I can see a lot of there's a lot of broken homes here, and I think that I if it's not the main contributor, I think it is the main contributor to broken people, is a broken home. My personal opinion is I think it's very valuable. I think the nuclear family, mom in the house, dad in the house with the kid, helping raise the kid together in whatever way they do that, nuclear family, I think that's the very first majorly important stepping stone in a young child's life to becoming a well-adjusted teenager, to becoming a well-adjusted adult.
I couldn't agree more.
Sorry, I'm trying to mute in between noise.
Oh, you're good, man. Do you have a gain? You have a gain function on that mic, right?
Yeah, I do, and I can turn it down a little bit, but I don't want it to drown me out or silence me out. But
No, I got you.
that should be a little bit better. But I think that's the first and most important stepping block to having well-adjusted people in our society is that nuclear family. I've heard arguments, and I can't agree with them. But I also, my experience might be different too because I grew up in that nuclear family. Um, so I only know what I know, but you have to back it up with statistics too to help with that. And I think we can find myriad studies that would support that that's the case and that's true. But I know, from my prior experience in career, most of the drug issues that have broken people down come from already broken people from already broken homes, and that seems to be the case most of the time. Not all of the time, but most.
I have noticed that, seeing friends I grew up with, if if mom was on drugs, the kid was on drugs. If father was a problematic alcoholic, the kids became a problematic alcoholic. If brother was involved in hard drugs, little brother got involved in hard drugs. It's not every family, but it is pretty common. Not every family though.
Not every family. I mean, I've seen families, some family friends of mine, literally, two brothers night and day. One of them became a police officer, and they had the exact same upbringing, exact same situation, and the other one struggled. Didn't do anything super serious, went to jail a couple times, um, but eventually straightened himself out and straightened his life out and got himself together. But it took much longer than it did for his older brother. But it's really interesting seeing how two paths from the same home can completely go in opposite directions. But it's not, again, it's not every house, it's not every case, it's not every situation.
Right, I got you. So actually, we're gonna get into reading this too, because this article goes into some of this. So, mental health determinants. Adolescence is a crucial period for developing social and emotional habits important for mental well-being. These include adopting healthy sleep patterns, exercising regularly, developing copying, problem solving, and impersonation and personal skills. Wow. And learning to manage emotions. Protective and supportive environments in the family, at school, and in the wider community are important. Multiple factors affect mental health. The more risk factors for adolescents are exposed to, the greater the potential impact of their mental health will be. Factors that contribute to stress during adolescence include exposure to adversity, pressure to conform with peers, and exploration of identity. Media influence and gender norms can exacerbate, and I'm not even going to get into this because I hate to even touch on that because we know that's a problem that's created. It's not a problem that existed. Can exacerbate the display between adolescents' lived reality and their. Yeah, I'm not even going to get into this whole sexual thing. I don't even care to do it. Some adolescents are at greater risk to mental health conditions due to their living conditions, stigma, discrimination or exclusion, lack of access to quality support and services. These include adolescents living in humanitarian and fragile settings, adolescents with chronic illness, autism, spectrum disorder, and intellectual disability or other neurological conditions. Pregnant adolescents, parents, or those in early forced marriages, orphans, and adolescents from minority, ethnic, or sexual backgrounds or other discriminated groups. So that kind of I mean, they're putting that out there too. Basically, if you're in a shitty environment, it's going to mess with your mental health and things are going to get worse, right? And I don't want to go down this road with this, but I'm just going to touch on this very briefly. This whole gender identification thing, I know it's creating problems, guys. I get it, but it's only a problem because we had allowed it to be a problem. Somebody said, I don't feel this way, and they pigeoned it, and now it's being forced on the kids. And I know it's creating problems, but I'm sad. I'm sorry, guys. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. I do not agree with it at all. That's it, period. Moving on. Jake, thoughts?
On that subject,
Uh, it's up to you if you want to touch that or not. I'd prefer not to.
yeah, that's fine. We can skip over that if you want to.
But the other things that were on this list, things going on within the home and stuff like that. I mean, I understand the orphanage, the orphans and stuff like that. I get that part, but
there's an argument and a counter argument to everything, and that's hard to sort through in today's world where everything seems to be an argument.
Hey preppers, do you want 10% off survival food? Go to www.readywise.com and use code DOOM10 at checkout for 10% off all your survival food needs. Again, that's code DOOM10 at checkout at readywise.com, DOOM10 for 10% off at readywise.com.
And again, we have to be willing to set our wants to argue aside and look at the logical things in front of us, which the only thing we have to make a logical conversation and a rational conversation are the facts and the numbers, which are skewed sometimes because we don't have the numbers from every household, and we know that no two households are the same. But I would be really curious, if there were ever a project where there were, say 20 kids growing up in the exact same environment in the exact same way, to see if it truly is a product of the home experience or just a product of personality and development of who we are and how different we are and how varied we are as humans in the first place. And that's not going to happen, really. So it's really hard to have that discussion, and it comes down to just your personal experience, really. Everybody again can make their arguments, and they can say, well, look at somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer. How is he so broken when he grew up in such a nice household, and yada yada yada. I'm sure there weren't moments of beauty, just like in every household. My life was great, but also I was a dumb kid and I got in trouble, and it wasn't always pretty. And I deserved a lot of that, but that's what we do as kids. We screw up. But the problem is not learning from those mistakes and repeating them later in life. And some people kind of get stuck in, I guess, a rut, to say, and they don't carry over those things that they learned or didn't learn, and they carry those over into adulthood, and it affects them as an adult, and that carries over into the next generation. We have generational issues. So I would say it's almost impossible to kind of determine. And I think even the brightest lights can come from the darkest of corners, and we've seen that happen too.
I got you. I get what you're saying. 100%. So we have a few different things here that I did want to get into to wrap this article up, but I just want to tell you guys, we're not going to get into each one of these because it's all a lot of reading for their own paragraph. And if you guys show me in the chats like you don't know what that is and you want me to explain or give an example of it, I can, because they're all here. But this is what they're classifying within this realm of disorders. So they're coming in with emotional disorders. Pretty much all know what that is. Second to this is behavioral orders. And then what they're finding with this is eating disorders, psychosis, suicide and self-harm, and risk-taking behaviors. Also, and I mean, if any of these are something you guys aren't familiar with, I can go through and I can read through these. Just let me know in the chats. If not, I do want to keep this moving forward. They have something in here that I agree with and disagree with. So we're going to get into this. Early detection and treatment. It is crucial to address the needs of adolescents with mental health conditions, avoiding institutionalizing and over-medicalizing, prioritizing non-pharmaceutical approaches, and respecting the rights of the children in line with the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child and other human rights instruments are key for adolescents' mental health. Okay, so I agree with don't institutionalize, don't over-medicate. I agree with this, okay? 100%. The problem is, and this is what we're going to get into in the second half of the show, the problem is they, as in the mental health providers, the schools, all these guys, they want to over medicate. They want to institutionalize. States get funding for this. Medicaid gets funding for this. They have people that have jobs like that. My son has a care coordinator, right? And her job, she gets paid to figure out where to send different kids and to show up for a monthly meeting every month. Like, she physically gets paid by the state to regulate where these kids are going. And I understand that's a job that needs to be had, that somebody's got to do that job. But when it's this big of a problem where you have to employ multiple people, multiple agencies, have to have things set up everywhere, don't you think there might be a bigger problem here than what we're addressing? The fact that we're creating these problems? Because that's what I think.
I think it becomes a problem when we take things like this, where there are people who legitimately do need the help, and they do get it, and that's wonderful. But hold on.
Oh, you're good, Jake. You do your thing.
Sorry. But there legitimately are people out there who legitimately do need the help. And I hope that all of those people who legitimately need the help get the care that they need. And I hope that that care is from somebody who is not motivated by financial gain, but out of the pure kindness and compassion out of their heart. And they are doing what they are supposed to be doing with their life, which is helping guide these young people and getting them the help that they truly need in an unselfish and an unbiased and without negative enticement, meaning money. But we know that's not the case, because people are people, and there are absolutely some people who are motivated by money, and they know that they get more funding, they can get a pay raise, they know that they get a pay raise, they can, this and that and this thing. We know how this works, and we see it happen, and it happens. And unfortunately, some of those people, all of those people slip through the cracks. And it's really unfortunate, because sometimes those people also do not care about what happens to the people, what happens to the kids, what happens to the ones who need the care. They want to over medicate because they get more funding, and they get more funding. And you know how this goes. It's a slippery slope, and it seems to be money motivated. And in this way, money seems to be the root of all evil. And what it leads to is that people not getting the care that they need to get, and they're not getting properly helped. And we know that, I would say 99% of the time, just going straight to medication and pills is rarely the answer. It's a band-aid for the problems a lot of the time. But again, there are people who legitimately need it.
Right. And I don't disagree with you at all. So one thing I wanted to get in here on this list was the risk-taking behavior side of this, because this is what we see when we talk about the risk-taking behaviors within mental health. These are what really screws up people's lives that aren't getting the help that they need. So there's so many different factors in here, but basically what I wanted to point to with this is a lot of the behaviors that you see create criminal behavior, right? The risk-taking behaviors. You're talking, first off, it's educational, the whole risk-taking behavior. Well, I'm not going to study for this test. I'm just going to go take it. I'll take the risk. If I fail, I fail. Who gives a shit? And then it's also the idea of getting involved with things where you start committing crimes. Like, I'm going to steal this from the store. It starts out small and then gets worse. And then a lot of violence can come out of this too. A lot of unplanned pregnancies can come out of this. A lot of STDs and STIs can be transmitted with this risk-taking behavior. And I'm going to tell you what, guys, a lot of people that I've seen when I was working in law enforcement, the people that were most problematic, you could tell were not right in the head, that there was definitely something mental going on. And I'm not saying everybody. Some people are just, they are just career criminals, or they live a life of crime. But some people, you could legitimately tell there's something wrong upstairs, and they weren't getting the help that they needed. And I know that, Jake, you worked in the prison system for a long time. Do you feel that inmates were getting the help that they needed as far as?
Oh, heck no, dude. No,
I guess that's the short answer.
man, we used to have our state care for mental health used to be pretty decent, in all honesty, and it was a really big problem during Obama's term because he closed all of the state hospitals down. And so what that meant then were that the people you're describing, the people that I dealt with that you're describing, instead of them going to an institution where they could get care and not treated as a criminal, they came straight to jail because there was no other place for them legitimately. They closed all of the state hospitals down. All of those people came to jail, and you can imagine what kind of a burden that was on people like myself and my coworkers, my staff, who weren't equipped to deal with those situations all the time because we didn't work in an institution. We worked in a jail. We worked in a detention facility. We dealt with criminals who were short term, OWIs, DUIs, assaults and batteries and the typical things you see in small towns. But it caused a huge burden on the state to have to figure out how to place these people, and trying to quickly train people like us on how to deal the best with the situations. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible.
This is an emergency action message. At approximately 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, NORAD is tracking 15 ICBM nuclear missiles inbound to the following cities: Orlando, Miami, Pittsburgh, Dover, Newark, Richland, Philadelphia, New York City, Baltimore, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Boston, Seattle, Detroit. This is an extremely deadly situation. Stay tuned. The next emergency message will be a presidential address.